Good day, everybody.
Hello.
I'm Hob.
I'm Jamie.
And this is another episode of Dutch and Dragons.
Woo!
This is a show where we answer random questions out of the lovely pink box of random questions about role-playing games and specifically Dungeons and Dragons, but also other games. Both I and Jamie are game masters and players.
Yep.
So let's get started. What's our first question?
First question of the day. Da, 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 da. Would you intervene in a plan that is likely to get the PCs killed?
You want to go first?
Sure. No. That's the short answer. No. It's their game. It's their decisions. If they make a dumb decision, they make a dumb decision. I would do it if it was... So if it's on my end, I accidentally didn't account for... I accidentally beefed a monster up too much, or I had something going on that if it's my fault, I might intervene, or I might, gimp the thing that's going to kill them on the fly to match their power level. But I would never be like, no, guys, that's a terrible plan. They made the plan, they live with how the plan falls out. That's part of the fun.
Yeah, and that's part of player agency, which is a very important thing in role-playing games. So I agree. I would not intervene. And by intervention, I guess, I would not directly go, no, you really shouldn't do that. They made the plan. They're going to execute the plan, and their job is to improvise and survive, or to not. And that's it.
And that's part of what makes the game fun. So the short answer is
Nope.
Okay, next question. How would you deal with being the reason someone didn't have fun at your game? Ooh, I'm the reason?
Yeah, so...
as a DM or as a player?
Either.
Okay. So I'll take player, you take the DM.
Okay.
So how would you deal with that?
As a dungeon master, we have a social contract, and we talk about the social contract a lot. But as a dungeon master or a game master, you have a social contract to do your best to make sure that everyone at your table is having fun.
Is having a good time.
And it doesn't always work out. Sometimes, through your own fault, even... your players don't have fun, or one particular player doesn't have fun. If they bring it to you, my suggestion is to clarify why you were the reason they didn't have fun, what it was that you could have done differently, and then try to do better. Because that's all you can ever do, is really reasonably try to do better as a dungeon master, and try to make it so that next time you are aware of or sensitive to the fact that that person wasn't having fun. And that's all you can do, I think.
I agree. As a player, there are going to be times where you have two players who don't necessarily aren't besties, and that happens. You have players that just aren't going to be best friends. I think if someone came to me as a player and was like, you're the reason I don't have fun, my first question would be okay, why? And it can be something maybe it's something reasonable. I know that some players have a tendency to be the center of attention. They really want to be the star player, and they tend to step on the toes, the cues and lines of the other players. So if someone was like, you're the reason I'm not having fun, you ignore my ideas in game, you ignore everyone else's storyline, then that would be something I would be like, wow. And I think I would go and talk to the dungeon master at that point and be like, am I doing something like that? Because I would want to know. And I don't think there's anything wrong with those players. Just sometimes they need to work out some sort of signal to be like, okay, tone it down. It's time for someone else to have a chance. Something you can do as a dungeon master, if you notice that sort of thing, is assign the leadership to someone for that night.
Yeah.
And rotate it around. If it's just a matter of clashing personalities, there's some things that can't be helped. I mean, honestly, you want to be like, oh, well, everything can be helped and we can all get along and play at the same table. And sometimes that's just not true, I don't think. Like, I think there are some personalities and some game styles that just aren't going to mesh well. And when that happens, I mean, you might, if you're at a table and you're just miserable and everyone else seems to be having great, but you're miserable, there's always the chance that maybe it's just not the table for you.
True story.
So that's another thing you have to kind of consider is like, is it another person's problem or is it just that this isn't your fit?
There you go.
Yeah, so I think that's where I would go. It would just really depend on how I'm ruining their fun. I mean, it would just depend on how. Like, some things can be helped and some things can't be. I always encourage players to bring, when I'm dungeon mastering, I always encourage players to bring me in on strife, conflict, and things like that. Be like, I don't know about this. I don't know. They're playing this kind of weird. I'm uncomfortable with it. I always want to... That's what they're there for, is to facilitate. So, next question. I could go on that one all day.
Yeah, I know.
What's the most memorable experience you've had while playing D&D?
The most memorable experience
done this one, but
I've
maybe not.
had. It's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible that we've done this one before.
Okay.
But most memorable experience I've had while playing D&D.
Do one that's positive. What's a good positive experience?
Well, I don't know about positive experience, but it's funny.
Definitely
funny.
Memorable.
So I played a character, and this isn't actually D&D related. This is a game called Hero System.
Okay.
I played a character. His name was Bo. Bo Brick. Bo Brick. This is way, way, way back in my younger days, and Bo was not the brightest bulb in the box. Bo was he was intelligently deficient, but he was hyper strong and nigh on invulnerable. But he was an idiot savant.
Oh, great. Okay.
In one very specific area.
Okay.
Military weapons.
Oh, so he could, like, all the military weapons.
So he could identify military weapons in all sorts of weird ways. And so they're standing in we're standing in a subway tunnel. And the game master is talking about how we hear this roaring sound. And I was like, well, I want to roll a check to see if I recognize what it is.
Is it a weapon?
And it turned out that it was a weapon, and very specifically, it was a specific type of intercontinental ballistic missile traveling down the subway tunnel.
Oh no!
And I succeeded on my roll and identified exactly what kind of missile it was, what its payload was, and how much damage it would do when it finally exploded. And everybody's just looking at me like, what? I like missiles.
I like missiles. I like missiles. I can totally see why I like missiles.
And that was kind of the end of it. But that was probably one of the funnier moments, is everybody just staring at me like, as I rattle off all of this information about this particular missile. And they're like, what? You don't know anything, Bo. And I'm like, I like missiles.
I like missiles. I could totally see that.
So there's one from me.
I like that. Oh, mine, most memorable. I'm going to have to think about this, which is perfect, because we're going to get coffee.
That's true. We're going to get coffee. What's up, man?
We're going to get y'all.
I would like a small iced extra shot coconut milk caramelizer.
Small iced extra shot coconut milk caramelizer?
Yeah.
Anything else?
What do you want?
I'm going to get a small iced coconut milk German chocolate mocha.
Small iced coconut milk German chocolate mocha.
That's right.
Yes.
Anything else?
Nah, that's it, man.
Perfect. Total's 1020.
Yep.
Here's that for you.
There you go, man.
Here's that. You guys are all good to go.
Alright on, thanks, man. Have a good
Bye,
one.
guys.
Bye. Alright, so my most memorable moment would have to be, we were playing an ultramodern game. And I have this player, and she is a fun player. She's a great player. She's a button pusher. But her characters never really get a moment to shine because she's kind of that, like, mulligan character. Some days you just don't know how she survives, what she does. And I had them in, basically, it was, there's a book out there, it's called Dirty Magic, and I was basing the game off of that, where magic was something that could be bottled and distributed, and somebody was making basically dirty magic that was killing people. And they were in this facility that had it, and she stole, very slyly, she slides me this piece of paper and says, I want to steal some of the samples of this dirty magic. And I had her roll, and she did, she stole them. And so a few games later, they were at this place, and they were getting surrounded by bad guy guards, and she pops out one of these bottles and says, what the hell, I mean, we're gonna die anyway, and chugs it. And she ends up, like, pink bubbles foaming at the mouth. I had a table and bubbles coming out of her ears and dripping down her eyes. It was like gruesome, weird, but with pink bubbles. And
what's up, man?
Hey.
Oh yeah, that's where you are. What are we doing on Sunday?
Getting coffee.
It's coffee time.
Getting coffee.
Getting coffee? Well, what did you guys do before this?
Sat at the house.
Yeah, I got ready to get.
Honestly, that's
Super
pretty
exciting, right?
chill. No, it's always exciting. I mean, spending money, like trying to like make yourself have fun. I don't consider that fun. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
I mean, if you're at home or surrounded by your aesthetic, then hey,
There you go.
nothing
Good
else.
times.
It's kind of nice that Arizona's having good weather right now.
Yeah, true story.
Won't
Yeah,
last.
I'm not excited for.
Won't
I don't
last.
know. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Arizona's likes playing tricks on us, you know. Have you guys lived anywhere else besides Arizona?
Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana.
All over.
All around. What made you move around so much? Just work or just adventure?
No, just places I've lived.
Oh, places you just lived in your past?
Yeah.
Oh, I feel you. Have you like any of them you remember?
Oh yeah.
Many?
Yeah. Of course.
Well, I don't know. I used to live in Maryland and Delaware, and like that was so long ago. Like I barely remember.
Oh wow, yeah. See, like I remember lots of stuff.
Well, then I guess you have a good memory.
Some days.
Some days.
You said you lived in Washington and Oregon. Which
Yeah.
one was cheaper to live in?
Depends
I
on
mean,
the year.
it really depends on what you mean by cheaper. Like Oregon, you don't pay any sales tax on anything, but your prices tend to be a little bit higher on goods and services, and your property taxes and stuff tend to be a little bit higher. But in Washington, you pay like a really high sales tax, but like a lot of your other taxes are way lower. Like you don't pay income tax, if I remember right. So like it's you know, it just kind of depends on where and what, you know. Like if you're trying to live in Portland or Seattle, you're gonna pay a fortune, man. It's really expensive to live in either one of those places.
Okay. So would you say like say if like someone's like just sporadically gonna move to a different state, like but they had a choice between Washington and Oregon, what would you think would be easier to adjust to?
Live in Vancouver, work in Portland.
Hey, that's a nice strategy.
It's actually it's really common because Vancouver and Portland are right across the river from each other. So there are a lot of people that live on one side and work in the other. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Because I mean, it's like a 15-minute drive to get to Vancouver.
Well, maybe I'll think about that when if I think about moving over
Yeah.
there. Whatever. Hey, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I've tried to sell it to students a bunch of times, but they don't.
This is going to be the mocha, the coconut German chocolate.
All right.
This is going to be the caramelizer.
Cool.
All right, guys.
Right on.
Great day.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
All right. Okay, so, like I was saying, pink bubbles from everywhere. Mouth, nose, eyeballs. And the guards all failed their constitution saving throws on that. And we're
Was it
totally...
Constitution or Wisdom?
Wisdom or... I can't even remember anymore.
I
But
don't know. Doesn't matter.
whatever, they
failed their saving throws.
and were totally freaked out by this and just ran screaming from her, foaming at the everything. It was pretty funny.
I forgot about that one. That one is pretty funny.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I thought that was hilarious. So.
All right.
All right,
Next
next
question.
question. Dun, 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 dun. Is it possible to start a game with all new players and a new DM no one's ever played before ever?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's so
You should do that.
you should do that.
Not only
Absolutely.
can you should.
Not only can you should. And with a minimum of materials, too. I mean, really, you need a few sets of dice, some paper, some erasers, and a player's handbook or player's guide for whatever game it is
You
that
can
you
all
want to play.
figure it out together.
And then, yeah, you guys can all sit down and kind of figure out the whole thing together. And it's a really great way to start playing because everybody's learning at the same time. You just have to have somebody who's willing to help tell a story.
Yeah. I think that's a fun idea. Everybody get together and let's try this thing.
Next question.
Next question. What do you do when the initiative order doesn't line up for the person who initiates combat? That is all you, man. I'm like, wait, what?
All right. So, from a mechanics perspective, once combat is initiated, initiative is rolled immediately. So, technically speaking, technically speaking, there is no way for someone to initiate combat and be the first person to go unless they get really, really lucky. But that isn't actually the case. So, if I have a player who says,
run in and smack him on the head.
Well, more specifically, if I have a player, they're in a social encounter. In this case. So we've got a social encounter. There's some back and forth and there's some tension because the social encounter is with an enemy. All right. And the player who's closest to an enemy combatant or an enemy NPC says, well, I just, I draw my sword and I stab it. That is the action that initiates the combat. So you resolve that first. Then everyone rolls initiative and turn order takes place. I sort of treat it like a surprise round, even though that technically doesn't exist in 5e. But that's the way that I treat it. So that first action is outside of the combat order and simply occurs and is what initiates the initiative roll with everyone.
Yeah.
That I think is the easiest way to deal with it.
Yeah, totally true. True. I don't really have anything to add to that. So, have you ever had to deal with a bad sport player and how did you deal with them? Like a sore loser?
A bad sport player.
Yeah,
so
like someone who just is unhappy with how the roles lie.
I am guilty of being a bad sport player. I've also had
really?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm also guilty I've also had to deal with a bad sport player. I have had situations where I've been the bad sport, because things weren't going my way that night, and for whatever reason, I was just surly about it. And sometimes you get salty about the whole thing, and you're not having fun, and so you get cranky, and things aren't going your way, and it gets worse.
Someone who stepped in the quicksand.
Yeah, you kind of stepped in the quicksand, and it just keeps being
worse.
bad. And then, but dealing with a bad sport player. Very specifically, someone who is at your table and is being a bad sport. They are down on everyone else's good luck. They're down on their own bad luck. If whatever's going on, but they're bringing the fun down at the table. Sometimes the best thing you can do is take them aside and say, hey, maybe tonight isn't the best night for you to be playing. So maybe come back with a fresh outlook next week. Now, if you have a chronic bad sport, might not be the right table for them. If they're bringing everyone's fun down, if they're ruining your game because they don't like the way things are playing out, if they're detracting from everyone's fun.
I think the level of it has a lot to do with how I would deal with it. Like, someone's just having a bad night. I have had people who they are having the worst night and they can't roll to save their lives, and the good rolls they do get are throwaway rolls. Sometimes we'll be in the middle of something and they'll think of something cool to roll and they'll roll that one, and I'm just like, you know what, you need to change dice. Here, take my set, do something like, I don't know, sage your dice, cleanse your karma, roll that again.
Yeah.
Like, every once in a while, I will just be like, you know what, you need a break.
Yeah.
You need a little bit of an oomph, let's give it to you. Another thing that I've done with when things do that is, when I play, I really like to role play the bad rolls and make them funny and make them interesting. So yeah, you're having terrible luck, but it's something that I try to make fun because it catches on to other players.
Sure, absolutely.
So-
And one of my favorite podcasts encourages that.
Yeah. So when I go to do the really cool thing with my Vorpal sword and take the thing's head off and roll a freaking 1, I go, I don't do it! I trip over my own feet, basically almost stab myself. Like, I try to make it more interesting so that those bad rolls aren't just, well, I didn't do it.
Yeah. And I think that's important, is also to role play through those. I mean, not everybody is on their game 100% of the time, and adding a non-mechanical element of fun to those bad rolls can actually turn the whole thing around. So I like that.
But yeah, chronic, if you have a chronic player who's just never has fun, they always show up, they're always in a bad mood, they're always not having fun, then I think that is something that you really
it's something
do have
that should
to
be addressed. Yeah, absolutely.
So take them aside and be like, I don't know what it is. Is it the campaign? Is it your character? I had one player who just never seemed to be having fun, and it basically, they rolled a character they thought was going to be super fun in the campaign and then just wasn't. And I was like, okay, let's kill this character. Let's kill this son of a bitch and get you a better character then. Like, there are things you can do, and I think that at some point in time, like, something has to give. I've heard
Sure.
of DMs that are like, no, you can't kill your character, and you can't get rid of your character, and you can't change characters. And I'm like, how's that fun, though?
It's not.
It's not fun for the
It's
person
not.
playing. It's not fun for everybody at the table that has to put up with their not having fun. So, yeah, I think that there is something to be done there.
Sure, I agree. So that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
If you are enjoying our show, please like and subscribe down below.
Click
If
the
you'd
little
like
bell.
to,
Ding, 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 ding.
if you'd yes, click the little bell so you get notifications. If you would like to ask us questions, leave them down below. If you'd like to comment on our questions, if you'd like to answer our questions, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Just post in the comments down below.
Tell us what we're doing wrong.
Tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell us what we're doing
doing
right. We don't care. Just talk to us. Once again, thank you.
Have a good day.
Great day.
Enjoy your adventures.